You all are fine. We are starting with lecture number 17 from unit number 13. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem, namely Ozymandias. It's a poem by Percy Shelley. First year English compulsory. Here I am, Sumaira Zahir from Army Bernal College for Girls. First of all, about Shelley. He was born in Sussex, England on 4th August 1792 in West Sussex. He was the eldest legitimate son of Sir Timothy Shelley, a Sussex landowner. He had 4 younger sisters and a much younger brother. He received his early education at home. He was one of the major English romantic poets, widely regarded as one of the greatest lyric and philosophical poets in the English language. A radical in his poetry as well as in his political and social views, Shelley did not see fame during his lifetime, but recognition of his achievements in poetry grew after his death. Shelley is best known for classic poems such as Ozymandias' Ode to the West Wind. Analysis of the poem. It's a beautiful sonnet, and the sonnet is about the ruins of a statue of Ozymandias. In antiquity, Ozymandias was a Greek name for the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II. I hope you know the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, and Ramesses was the pharaoh at that time, who ruled from 1279 BCE to 1213 BCE. It's no surprise that the poem is named after him. I'll come to the main story of the poem. The poet met a traveler who came from a remote land. The poet, Shelley, once he met a traveler who was coming from a far-off land. He told the poet that he saw the remains of a statue in the desert. 2 huge legs of that statue, which was made up of stone, stood, and the remaining part of the statue, the upper part or the upper body, was missing. Another part of the statue, the face, it lay on the sand nearby. It was damaged and broken into pieces. The face of the statue had expressions of displeasure and a taunting smile. The wrinkles and lines of the face were also there. The poet says that the sculptor who had made the statue had read the expressions on the Egyptian king Ramesses' face very well, as he was able to copy them onto his statue so accurately. These expressions continued to exist even after the king's death and even after many, many centuries through this lifeless statue. The sculptor's hands copied the king's ruthless expressions and mocked at them, while the king's stone heart brought out these expressions on his face. Like when he made that statue, he tried to bring about all those expressions present on the face of the actual king, Ozymandias. The poem is a narrative poem. Narrative poem which is telling you a story, or which is narrating you a story, just like a narrative essay, where the speaker starts it with I, because the speaker himself is the narrator, making it look like a first person narrative. When it is I, obviously it is first person. But then it gets into a frame of reported speech when he is talking to the traveler, and then he is narrating the speech of the traveler in his own words. So that becomes the reported speech from another man, a traveler from an antique land, a very old or ancient land, whom the speaker met. Actually, this sonnet got its content from the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, who wrote about a massive Egyptian statue, quoting the inscription under it. Like there was a kind of inscription written under the statue, so he quoted that as well. So Diodorus' work served as the source of the poem. The sonnet is in iambic pentameter. I hope you remember. I have told you iambic pentameter, having 5 stressed syllables with some irregularities. The rhyme scheme AB, 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 AC, DC, ED, EF, EF is uncommon for a sonnet. The octave, I have told you in the previous lecture, first 8 lines of the sonnet, and the sestet, last 6 lines of the stanza, are linked together. Clearly, the poet has experimented with the form and rhyme scheme of the sonnet. This is the beautiful picture of that statue which is broken. See, these are the legs, stone legs are standing there, but the face or visage is lying away from the main body. This is the statue of Ramesses. See, all broken and shattered. This is the whole text of the poem. We will read it afterwards. This is another picture of that statue which is lying in British Museum as well. The same statue picture. Another statue of the same fellow, Ramesses II, in the British Museum. Now we come to the line by line explanation of the poem. I met a traveler, this is the very first line, from an antique land, who said, the speaker of the poem once met a traveler from an antique land. So the traveler was from a place with an ancient history like Rome, Greece, or ancient Egypt. The traveler told the poet a story of the ruins of a giant statue which he has witnessed or he has seen in a desert that he had come across. So it's a story within a story, like the poet is telling us a story of his meeting with the traveler, and then what story was narrated by the traveler. So it is a story within a story, a narrative within a narrative. Some critics opine that this framing has helped the poet add another level of obscurity to Ozymandias' position in people's mind. It is suggestive of how pride and glory of power fade away with time. Like we can say, the poet is telling us that he met a traveler from an old and deserted land, and the traveler told him that he saw 2 big legs. Later on we'll come to it. 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Visage is a French word for the face. The traveler told the poet that he saw 2 huge stone legs of a statue in the middle of a desert, trunkless, without the main body. Suggests that the legs were standing there without the upper body or the torso. The desert indicates that it was a part of an ancient Egypt. Near the standing legs or erect legs, he also came across the broken head or the shattered visage of the statue that was partially buried in the sand. Visage means a face, but it implies a head here. The shattered head denotes that the whole statue is destroyed with the passage of time, obviously, but we don't really know what exactly happened to that statue. It's perhaps just a natural process of decay with time. Whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read. The traveler goes on to describe that the face of the statue lying on the sand had the expressions, like still the expressions were visible on the face of the statue which is now broken. Even then the expressions are present on the face, still visible and identifiable, of the mighty ruler Ozymandias. He has used frown, wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command to give us an impression that the subject of the statue was an angry, commanding and often upset man. Like this is the statue of a person who was very ruthless and who was very commanding and always angry, and who was having a cold and a sneer of cold, a look of cold command on his face, and has always a wrinkled lip and a frown on his forehead. But the next line shifts the attention from the statue to the sculptor who created it. A person who designs statues is called a sculptor. So now he tells us about the sculptor. Tell that its sculptor well those passions read. Like it means the sculptor knew the king very well, or he knew the passions or the impression or the feelings or the expressions of the king very well. The traveler admires that the artist understood and felt, read his subjects, the man in the statue, passions and emotions very well. That is why he could draw the face so perfectly that it is still visible, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Beautiful lines. Which yet survive, like still the impression is still there, stamped on these lifeless things, stamped on the face of this lifeless statue, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. The man continues his praise for the sculptor. The words which yet survive implies the immortality of a work of art that the artist created, like so beautifully. He created the statue so beautifully that the expression is still preserved on his face. His creation is still alive. Stamped means alive on the otherwise lifeless stones. Like the statue is lifeless, but the expression is still alive. Stamped here means alive. The sculptor's hands copied and portrayed, mocked. Mocked means copied here. One mock means to mock at others or to laugh at others, but this mock here means to copy something. So he copied his subject, the portrait of the king so very well that he has copied all his passions, and his heart felt those inspired, fed to make it possible. Like he felt it, the sculptor's heart felt it, and then he was inspired by it, and then he made that statue. So that hand and that heart yet survive through this masterful creation. If you look at the statue, you will find out it is a creation of really a great master or a great sculptor. Survive through this masterful creation, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Now again the poem shifts to the statue. The traveler quotes the words written on its pedestal. There is something inscripted on the feet of the statue. The inscription declares the name of the man And this is what inscription? It is telling us that this is a king. It's Ozymandias. He also regarded himself as the king of kings. Ozymandias, who considered himself as king of kings because he was very mighty and very powerful, and he used to rule all the kings. So he called himself king of kings. I am Ozymandias, the king of kings. The ruler addresses others who think themselves powerful, mighty, to look at his works, to get their illusion shattered. Despair. The ruler, the king, addresses others like, look at my work, to get their illusion shattered. Shattered, to get in despair, like, look at my work. If you consider yourself mighty, so you should be dejected or despair of my work. Look at me, like I am the best, I am superior to you. This is Ozymandias. As if Ozymandias is talking to other rulers and telling them that I am the best, I am the ruler. As you already know from the above section that this was the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, the works might indicate to the famous temples and statues he built. You have seen so many old ancient buildings in Egypt. So these are all built by Ramesses. Here Ozymandias is giving a warning to the other kings and rulers not to hope for much greatness. Like he's saying, you cannot be as great as I am, as they can never cross his achievements. Like you can never come or get equal to my achievements. That certainly gives an impression of his proud and commanding nature. But ironical enough, his own statue is now grounded by the great force of nature. Like, look at his own statue, which is grounded by nature, destroyed by nature, and it is lying deep in the sand. So he says, the poet says, pyramids were also constructed by Ramesses in Egypt. Nothing beside remains. Nothing. We all are mortal beings. Nothing remains. Everything dies. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. I'll explain it in the next slide. Nothing beside remains up till far away. And here comes the final words from the traveler on how there is nothing except those ruins and the sands all around. The colossal wreck hints at how the huge, gigantic statue and the high flying passions attached to it, to the passions of the king, are all dusted now. They are all mixed with the dust or the sand. The boundless and bare and the lone and level sands. These are the metaphors used for sand. Sand stretching far away symbolizes the vastness of time, like it stands for time, like time kills everything. Nothing is left behind. Whether you are a king or you are a beggar, you have to die one day. We, the human beings, are very little creatures in the vast passage of time. Our pride and might will eventually disappear. But what remains immortal is the work of art. Like art can remain, but we all will die. These last lines suggest the central theme of the sonnet. We will discuss it afterwards. What poetic devices are used? Ozymandias is a sonnet. It has used alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of sound or letter at the beginning of multiple words in a sentence. There are several instances of alliteration in Ozymandias, including phrases like cold command. See, B is repeated, O is repeated. Boundless and bare, B is repeated. The repetition in alliteration often makes a poem sound more interesting and pleasant, and it can also create soothing rhythm. in contrast to the tension caused by enjambment. I hope you remember I have told you enjambment when one thought is not finished in one line and it is continued into the other line, that is called enjambment. Personification. Shelley has used personification, that means to use human emotions for inanimate object like the statue. He has used personification twice in the poem. For example, in the 5th line, and wrinkled lip. Now this is wrinkled lip of the statue he is talking about. And sneer of cold command, the sneerish look or the look on the statue refers to the broken head of the statue. What is Ozymandias a metaphor for? Like, what metaphor is used in the Ozymandias, and it is used for what? Ozymandias is first and foremost a metaphor, like the sonnet itself is a metaphor for the ephemeral. Ephemeral means the lasting, something which is lasting for a short time, nature of political power, and in that sense the poem is Shelley's most outstanding political sonnet, treading the specific rage of a poem like England in 1819 for the crushing impersonal metaphor of the statue. The themes of Percy Bysshe Shelley's poem Ozymandias are fairly straightforward and are also highly traditional. Basically, the poem reminds powerful people, strong people, influential people of the society that their power is only temporary. However much powerful people may wish to think that their power is immortal, they are only deceiving themselves. Like they will get destroyed one day, their power will be finished and nothing will be left, because they are all mortal and power itself is going to be finished one day. Now this is paraphrase again. I met up till heart that fed. I met a traveller from an old and deserted land. He told me that he saw 2 big legs, which were made of stone, standing without the upper part of the body. The other part of the statue, shattered, lay nearby. It was half sunk into the sand. The sculptor has printed everything on the statue. The skillful hands of the sculptor had left the accurate expression of the man into his sculpture. The expression of aggression, power, and pride of Ramesses II was even obvious on the lifeless body of the king or the statue. Second stanza, and on up till away. I saw that there was some text written on the base of the statue, the pedestal of the statue, and it tells that it was the statue of the king Ozymandias. He was the most powerful king. He ordered the other kings to see his statue and be belittled. But the tragedy is that nothing remains except a lifeless statue of the king. The huge statue itself tells about the glory of the king, but now it has fallen victim of nature and time. Its broken pieces have vanished in the sand. The sand is stretching far away, and the statue of Ozymandias is getting a thick layer of sand on it. And this is telling us nothing is left behind. No one is immortal. These are the difficult words meanings, so you can check them from the poem. Do try to learn these meanings, because they will be helpful to you in the MCQs. Ozymandias explanation of literary devices again. This is a beautiful statue of Ramesses. Again, another picture where you can see this is the pedestal. The inscription was written here somewhere, and this the broken trunk, a remaining part of the statue. These are the again difficult words and their meanings. You need to memorize them. Now, summary of the poem. This is a sonnet, a poem of 14 lines. The first 8 form an octave and the last 6 form sestet. It is about a ruined statue, a broken statue, destroyed statue, which has become so with the passage of time. The title, Ozymandias, is the throne name of Egyptian king Ramesses II. The poem talks about his foolish desire to immortalize himself. And you know it, most of the pharaohs of that time, they tried to immortalize them by mummifying themselves, like they have started this culture of mummifying or making their converting their dead bodies into mummies. Still, these mummies are present inside the pyramids. Himself by erecting a statue. So what he wanted to have built a statue of himself, just a pure copy of himself. So the poet meets a person who has been to an ancient place in the deserts of Egypt. He tells the poet about the ruined statue of the great powerful king Ozymandias. It had been destroyed with the passage of time. There were only the 2 legs which stood on a platform, and the upper part of the body was nowhere to be seen. The face of the statue lay buried in the sand. He praises the talent of the artist or the sculptor as the minutest, each and every detail, expressions, like all the expressions, feelings, his emotions were present, and wrinkles had been perfectly copied by him. The engraving on the platform, or the inscription, the written material on the platform, reflects the pride and arrogance of Ozymandias. How arrogant and how proud he was. As the statue is now destroyed, the engraving is a mockery at the now engraving becomes mockery, like as if it is making fun of his pride and ego of the king. Today, after the passage of so many centuries, finally there is no trace of the king's accomplishment, his achievements in the vast stretch of the desert, because now there lie the broken statue and the desert only. No one knows about his achievements, and no one knows about how mighty a king he was. The face has a frown. A frown means when you are giving an angry look, it appears on your forehead. A wrinkled lip and a sneer of cold command. Although the statue was commissioned by Ozymandias to portray his greatness, the sculptor chose to portray the ruler's pride and selfish superiority. This shattered visage, the face, illustrates a haughtiness, condescension, pride, and even anger, the frown. The poem describes the expression on the head of the sculptor as follows. A shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of command. The word frown makes the reader assume that the model had a harsh, perhaps angry disposition, as does the phrase wrinkled lip, which evokes sneering. Ozymandias has a tone of ironic solemnity. The irony emerges from the juxtaposition of Ozymandias' inflated vision of his power and grandeur as ruler of a mighty kingdom and what survives of it today. A broken statue scattered on an empty desert. And these lines clearly emphasize the speaker's mocking attitude. Here, being a representative of the common man, the speaker signifies the brutality, pride, and arrogance of Ozymandias, who tortured his subject, misusing his power. He had full confidence over his fame, but often underneath, reality tells something else. I have tried to present you each and every part of the poem, especially here. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered. Shattered is actually what? An adjective. You will find the adjective visage. Visage is a noun and it's a word used for face. Now, what is the effect of these three descriptions of the face? What does cold suggest? What is a sneer? Sneer of cold, command. Like sneer of cold, command. Like a person who is feeling less, who is very angry, sort of, and selfish, and he has this sneering command, a cold command, without any feelings. And wrinkled lip. And sneer of cold command. This is cold command is also alliteration, repetition. Tell that its sculptor, tell personification. It features as if the statue is a human being, and it is telling that its sculptor, well, those passions, emotions. Red is the metaphor. His face is just like a book, which the sculptor can read easily. Like he read the book of the face of the king, and as if it is a book, and then he engraved those passions on his statue, which he made, which yet still survive. Contrast with lifeless later in the even the statue is lifeless, but the feelings are still there. Stamped metaphor. Curved face has been stamped with features like a coin. Like all these features, all these feelings are engraved on the, just like a coin, on the face of the statue. Then the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Do check it attentively. This is beautiful language or diction used in the poem. He describes each and everything so beautifully. It's another description of the poem. You can go through it yourself because everything is mentioned here. See? Sneer of cold, arrogance. Stand in desert. Setting. It tells us where the statue is lying, like the desert. Trunkless, without the upper part. So you can check it out yourself. This is alliteration, lone and level, boundless and bare, all alliteration. Stretch far away, the desert which is vast. King of kings, so arrogant, so powerful. Ye mighty, so powerful. Ye stands for you, old archaic language. Despair, iron. Like you need to despair because I am the best. Talking to the other rulers. So you can do it yourself as well. See, mock. The hand that mocked at them. Mock can mean to ridicule or to create a likeness, copy. theme of the poem? The theme of the poem is the instability of power and wealth, and also art. The major theme is that all power is temporary, no matter how proud or tyrannical ruler you are. One day, the power will be snatched away from you. Anatomical condition of the statue: there are two large stone legs of the statue, which is missing chest or trunk to connect them. They stand upright in the desert, and the broken face of the statue is half buried in the sand. The face has a frown and wrinkled lip with a commanding sneer. Tone of the poem: its tone is very ironic. It is not a comic irony to laugh, but a somber and solemn to consider our own mortality and the vanity of human endeavors, and similarity to Ozymandias. Like people of today's world, they are also getting materialistic, running after power and running after name and fame, and like destroying others and reaching exalted positions, but all in vain at the end. They should keep in mind that one day they will die, or one day the power will be snatched away from them. It's all a game of power, which has no stability. Imagery: the imagery in the poem is that in a desert, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand, and near them lies a half-sunk visage which is shattered. This visage has wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command on the lip, which are now lifeless things. There are on the pedestal of the statue is written, "My name is Ozymandias, the king of kings," which lies ruined now in the desert. It evokes the picture of a destroyed statue lying shattered in the vast sand. The imagery is very close and contributes to the tone of the poem. The physical characteristics of the statue convey the poem's theme, the transit nature of human life, and the ultimate futility of fame, fortune, power, name, lying broken and forgotten in the sand, like nothing is left behind. The shattered body of proud and powerful king who once claimed, "Look on my works, on my achievements, ye, you mighty, you powerful kings." He's talking to other kings, and despair that you should be dejected, you should be hopeless, that you cannot compete me anyway. I am the king of kings, lies in the desert, now shattered and in pitiful condition. It contributes an ironical, transient tone to the poem, because it shows the transience of power, wealth, and kingship, which the poet ironically described like nothing is left behind. Everything will finish, whether you are a king or a beggar. Ironic overtone in inscribed lines on pedestal of the statue. Their implied meaning, moral or crux main idea of the poem is, it means that no one is permanent in this mortal world. Death sways everything with it. Ozymandias was boastful. He was always praising himself about his power, his wealth, and kingship. But his statue now lies destroyed and deserted in the desert. So we can say, pride hath a fall. Nothing is left behind. We all are mortal beings, so we should not be proud of our beauty, our youth, our health, our achievements, our name and fame and money and riches, like all will finish one day. We should be very humble and down to earth, and we should always be thankful to God for all the gifts, all the bounties He has bestowed us with. So I hope you are going to enjoy it. It is one of the best best poems of Shelley. Take very good care of yourself. Allah Hafiz. Goodbye. Have a nice time. Good day.